This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman and were subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Did you see that somebody emailed us about they put a message for their neighbor to remove their zombie baby decoration? Yeah. So happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween. Should we respond to that email?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll respond to that email.
This person, there was a zombie baby. They lost a niece. So sorry for your loss, Morgan, and I love that you messaged your neighbor, and I hope that they took down their zombie baby.
I'm so happy that they did that, and I'm really proud of her.
Yeah.
That's so nice. Also, it says, I'm leaving this letter along with the pumpkin. I notice you have children. Maybe they'll enjoy carving or painting it. Thank you for considering my request. I actually think that is so nice because we wrote it. We made that like draft letter. It was like a little snarky. This person took a very mature route.
Yes. Well, this person is the aunt of the dead baby, so it is a little bit of a different situation.
That's true. But we got messages on Instagram with other people who were like, I want to say something. And listen, if you said something, let us know because we are really proud of you and impressed, and good job. Good job advocating for yourself and your needs.
Agreed.
Okay, so today we are starting this week. We're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of our podcast.
Woo! Can you believe it, Judith?
I cannot. Does my audio sound better? Does it sound good?
It sounds fine.
Okay. We are celebrating 1 year of the podcast. And in honor of our 1-year anniversary, we had a lot of big ideas, none of which came about. However,
I had a whole document. We were going to do giveaways. We were going to do a week of episodes. Honestly, guys, we had so many plans. They're not happening.
None of them are happening because we are not functional. However, we are going to do a state of the podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about what we envision for this upcoming year, what we want many years to look like. We're also going to talk a little bit about a reflection about how these past 6 months have shaped up to be since I had a baby and Alina has been dealing with her heart stuff. So a state of our friendship, a state of the podcast. What else is this a state of?
I don't know. The world's gone to hell in a handbasket.
I know. Election day, yeah. Let's put that aside. So let's start with what are some episodes that you've been really proud of this past year? And like, what is something that what are you really proud of from this past year?
All right. So I think I'm going to talk about a couple of episodes that are coming to mind. I think the first one, no one will be surprised about. I really like Alina's Bad Day. I think that is a really good episode. We've heard from you all that you love that episode. I think it is comforting to me for many reasons. One, I like hearing that I was so distressed and I got better. I like hearing the words Judith said to me. I thought they were really comforting. I think it's a good episode for a grieving person because we've all had those days. So that one for sure. And then another one is the episode called Big Feelings, which came out right after your daughter was born. I feel like that one is, again, in the same way, such a good encapsulation of what it feels like to be a lost parent. This was for you, how you feel being a lost parent and a baby and a mother to an alive baby, but you were feeling some really big feelings. That's another one we've gotten really good feedback on from people. Like they just feel like it was really meaningful and felt really real to hear.
Yeah.
They liked that one.
I really like the one with Dr. Mendel.
I was going to say that one too.
Yeah.
Dr. Mandel and my EMDR therapist, I think those two were really interesting.
Really interesting and helpful. And I also want to say the one of how to speak to someone a grieving person, like what to say if you...
I can't imagine.
I think that one's just really practical, hands-on advice. And I have listened to it before going to a Shiva, someone, visit someone who's sitting Shiva. Now I listen to my own advice. That's my own advice, and I find it really helpful. So I'm going to say... We all need the reminder. I'm going to say let's also talk about what we're looking forward to in this next year. We are doing a series with friends. Mm-hmm. So we recorded episodes having just like really frank conversations with our friends and how the relationships have changed and some of the challenges that we faced with friendships. And I think that they're going to be so good. I mean, we've already recorded a few. They're so good, so relatable, just so powerful and vulnerable. I really appreciate. Oh, that reminds me of one that we didn't talk about that I love, which is the episode with our Mother's Day episode.
That was really good too.
But I think the ones with our friends, you're going to be recording one with your boyfriend. Well, I'll be there too. We'll be recording one with your boyfriend. I think that will be
what it's like to date a bereaved mom, which I cannot wait to
I think it'll be great. I actually wanted to talk to you about that because I want to wait until I'm in town and we can do it in person, the three of us.
Okay.
But I don't know when I'm coming to town, so let's worry about that later. And a few other ones that I want to do this year. I want to record one with my sister. My sister had a baby a couple months after Aiden died. And I think I don't know why this all happens, but it just seems like everyone we have people that have babies right after us that we have to watch grow up. And I think so many people can relate to the feeling of the pain and everything else that's associated with watching what could have been. So I'm looking forward to recording that. What are you looking forward to recording? Sure.
I am looking forward to, I think we've interviewed so many wonderful people this year, and I'm excited to do more interviews next year. We've kind of taken a break from interviews because they're just harder for me to edit and I was struggling, but we have a lot of ideas in the pipe. We've had people reach out to us to do interviews. If you haven't heard back from us, don't panic. We just are really behind, but I do like doing interviews and we know you guys like listening to interviews. So we will always, always, always be mainly just the two of us talking, but I'm excited to add some more voices into the mix also.
Okay. Here are some dream people that I would love to have. Nora McInerney, Megan Devine.
Oh my God, I would die.
And
I would die.
Glennon Doyle.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So we're going to start. God. If any of those happen this year, that's it. We're done. We did it. We've reached the pinnacle of success.
You know what else I'm excited about, Judith, actually? What? And this is a silly thing, but for those of you who've been listening since the very beginning, at the end of last year, we did an episode where we read our horoscopes for 2022 and we saw if they were real. And I really want to do that episode again at the end of this year. And our 2022 predictions for the horoscope are accurate and see what 2023 has.
100%. Yes.
Judith, do you know what else I'm excited about? We'll see if it ever happens.
What?
We have been attempting to record an episode about Judith's appointment with a baby medium.
Oh my God. Yes, the medium.
You guys, I'm not kidding. It has been months and months and months. Judith's
I can tell you, the first time it's been like over a year. I mean, that I've been supposed to be meeting with this person. And I'm texting him, and every time I send him an option, he doesn't answer. And then he's like, how about next week? Whatever. The point is, if we get this medium thing scheduled, if it happens, I would love to record that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about our end game idea now, or do you want to do the state of our friendship?
Let's do end game. So we've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
We love it.
We love it.
It also sometimes, but we mainly love it.
But let's put the stress aside. I think that any story, like any show, they always end like 5 seasons past when the good stuff ends. And I don't want it to get, well, there's a few things. I don't want it to ever feel like a chore. I don't want it. And I also don't want it to feel like dragging out.
Yeah. I don't want our podcast to jump the shark.
We set out to do this podcast to tell the story from the bottom of the hole up back to happier ever after. And I do not feel you can't see what's going on, but
what are you doing over there?
Just trying to put the microphone down. I do not feel I'm at happier ever after. Maybe I'm not in the depths of the hole with scorpions, but I am in a very dark place. Things are still very, very difficult for me. So, and I think that with everything going on with your heart, with the potential IVF you're going to be doing, with like, I don't think you're at happier ever after either.
No. I still feel like I have a lot of story to tell. Yeah.
I feel like I also have a lot of story to write.
But along with that, I do think there will be a point where we feel like there is less of our story. There's not as much to tell. Or at least, especially like maybe just a lot, like there's stuff going on, but it's not necessarily stuff we want to share. Like parenting a dead baby it feels very good to connect with people about that. But like, you don't really talk about your living daughter. And at some point she's going to take up more and more and more of your time, you know? Of your life. Of your brain space.
The way I see it is that I still very much live in the land of the dead.
Yeah.
But slowly with time, I find myself able to live in the land of the living a little bit more. Yeah. And I anticipate at some point I will be 90% back in the life of the living, and I just won't be able to access the feelings of being in the hole anymore. And I think when I can no longer feel like I can 100% relate, I can remember it and I can empathize, but I can't feel it. I think that's when I'll say, okay, I think it's time for us to figure out how to end this. Because, and I think we both agree we don't ever want to end it. We will always give, periodic.
Yeah.
Because I see
our end game being something like transitioning maybe to like every other week episodes or monthly episodes, or as we have something interesting to say episodes. Like, this is more than just like a weekly podcast to me. It's like a community. And I think the way you put it earlier, like if it ever starts to feel like a chore more than it feels like a gift, I think that would be a time we would need to reevaluate. But we're not there right now. In case
we're not there
listening to this and feels panicked.
We are not there right now. We're not there right now. I agree with you 100%. And it does feel good to hear people say that the podcast in some way has helped them.
Yeah.
We get messages like that a lot. Yeah. When people message, that does feel good.
And I say we get those messages a lot. That doesn't mean we don't want to get more of them. If that is true for you,
Alina's like, let's share the good feeling.
We get so many messages that we don't want any more.
But I think the reason that I feel so good is because I definitely feel like we filled a void that exists.
Yes.
And it feels like we filled a void that exists, and it feels good to put something out there to create something that won't go away. It'll continue. And I'm sure other voids will pop up and like in the lost community, and, other people will fill those holes, but it feels good to put something out into the world that can help other people that's not going away. It's kind of like I imagine someone who like builds bridges. You know what I mean? Like, it feels really good to be like, look, I connected 2 islands. Yeah. That will connect 2 islands.
It's multiple things, right? So I think that there are obviously lost podcasts, but there aren't many, like there's not a big infant loss podcast contingent. So there's obviously like Refuge and Grief has a podcast. There's the Worst Girl Gang Ever, but I do feel like that was a niche we filled. But then also specifically as a SIDS parent, I feel like there's not a lot of SIDS specific lost parent content out there. And that it feels good specifically for me to be able to fill that void. Like, I know we've directed a lot of people to the Roberts program. We've provided a lot of comfort for people around SIDS specifically, and that feels very meaningful to me. So but I also obviously love hanging out with all the stillbirth, the TFMR parents, and the miscarriage
parents. All your deaths. Give us more deaths. We'll take
them all the dead babies around.
I think that it's part of it for me is actually not the SIDS related thing, but I think one thing that we do add that makes me feel good is I think we make it fun. And I think that we try our best to offer friendship to our community. And we take that really seriously. I think we take that seriously. We take responding to messages seriously. We take responding to emails seriously. I think that we are so careful in some of the language we use.
We take responding to emails seriously. However, we are very slow about it.
We're very slow.
We always
do answer. We do answer. And on Instagram, we answer.
Yeah, we do.
We always answer. Yeah, we may not answer always like the minute, but we do take it seriously. We answer. Yeah. And we get to know your babies. Yeah. We get to know your babies. Like when we did the Wave of Light thing on Instagram, you added in all these different babies, and it was so fun. I don't know, fun to be like, oh, and don't forget, Fiona's baby and that, like all these babies and we know their names and we know their parents and we know their story a little bit. And that feels really good. So I definitely like that part of it. And also I think we are very careful about what we say, and we're very careful about the community that we want to build, that it's inclusive, that it's not judgmental, that it's kind. We're very conscientious when we ask people to join on the podcast. We're very clear, we never say one loss is worse than another. We never discount any losses. Like we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome.
Family structures. We're inclusive of
family structures. All family structures. I'm proud of the fact that we promote like men's voices to be heard and like fathers' voices to be heard. And we elevate voices of people of color. Like that's important to me. It's really important to me. Yeah, so I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of the community we've built, and I'm proud of the podcast that we've created.
Yeah, I think, and I think the last thing that our podcast is a little bit different, as I do feel like it's very personal to us. Like I think we were saying it's fun. I think there's a lot of our personalities in our podcast and in our Instagram content. I think a lot of really beautiful, wonderful Instagram accounts feel very impersonal, and I enjoy following them for their content, but I don't really know who they are. Yeah. Whereas I feel like our content is it's very personal to us in a way that I actually really like. We don't share everything. We obviously still have things that are private, but it feels good to have like some real personality in there. Like that's important to me too.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the state of our friendship. So we last spoke about this right before the baby was born. So just about 6 months ago. 6 months ago. Yeah. 7 months ago. Right before the baby was born, we spoke about this. So I should listen to that one. But again, I'd be like, and how do we compare? But I think
we'll link it in the description for anybody who's curious.
Yeah, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit about like how does it feel for you? 7 months. I think just in the past, maybe even 3 months, things feel like we've been like focused in 2 different directions.
I agree.
So I want to talk to you about how that feels.
I feel like when your daughter was first born, like just to like rewind and kind of like cover how it has felt over the last 6 or 7 months, I think when she was first born, when she was a newborn and when she was approaching the age that Aiden was when he died, approaching the age that Quinn was when he died, I feel like we were very much still really on the same page, focused on the same issues. Like that was what we were focused on. Let's keep her alive, like you were postpartum, like I came to visit. Like, I feel like we really were still looking in the same direction at the same problems.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And, I remember we recorded a couple episodes where I was like I was just so happy and calm and my life was so normal. Remember for like a couple of months, I had like these beautiful, easy months where things were calm. Like my relationship was going well, like my, whatever, like things in my life were going at good compared to, the last year. And so I think I had a lot of room to focus on things that were going on with you. Mm-hmm. And then I think there was a chunk of time right after I got my diagnosis where you were then focused on me for a time. But that was also kind of the first thing where we were really like your daughter being born, you were focused mainly on that. And I was in a good place and I was also mainly on that. Then my heart stuff, I was focused mainly on the heart stuff. And you were able for a couple of weeks to really focus on my heart stuff. So we were looking at the problems. Now it's like the last month and a half or so, I feel like you have a lot of shit going on and I have a lot of shit going on and we don't have the same shit going on.
Yes. And we neither of us have the space to put our shit aside and focus on the other person's shit.
Exactly. Yes. So I do feel like more than ever, we're just like constantly trying to catch up on what shit is going on in the other person's life. Like we have a 7-minute phone call. It's like, okay, blah, 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 blah,
yeah, 100%. Yeah. I don't want it to sound like we're not in touch because we're in like a lot of touch.
Every day.
We're in very much so touch. But I think you're right about the focus on the problem. I think in the beginning it felt like we were both just trying to get through these early months of grieving. Our entire focus and attention was on that. Then I was pregnant and like still the intention was still on the grief. And now it feels like I have a lot of shit going on. This past month has been the holidays. It's been like a new level of chaos.
For chaos.
But you have your heart stuff, which I'm, even though I call your doctors on occasion, I'm not involved in on an everyday basis. I'm involved in on an everyday basis. If you wanted me to be more involved, I suppose, I am good at getting things done. So I suppose you could always ask me. And I offer all the time. I'll send that letter, I'll call up. Like, I don't think I'm gone. But I agree. It just feels like our problems feel like they're in different directions now.
Yeah.
Both, what's so interesting to me? Both are born out of the same loss. Meaning, your loss affected you in this way that now you have to focus extra attention on your health and your physical body.
Yep.
And the exact same loss affected me a year and a half later. And I would say this is like a year and a half later. Okay, not immediately. A year and a half later, my loss affects me on it every single day. And my challenges are all relationship based. Whether it be my relationship with my daughter, relationship with my spouse, relationship with my family. I'm not focusing on my body. I'm focusing on all of these relationships and the complexities that they're proving to be. And it's like totally different. I think we both feel the loss on an everyday basis, not just the grief, but like it's like spidery fingers, like sticky fingers, like getting shit all over the place. And just in such different ways that in the beginning, I don't think we could have ever seen. Like,
when you say like the sticky fingers spreading out, it was like in the beginning we were actually stuck in the sticky mess.
Yeah. And we were in the same stick.
Yeah. And now the sticky fingers have spread out in different directions. And so we're like on opposite ends of the stickiness, like stuck in the mess, but like we're not right next to each other anymore.
And I think, which I actually really, I'm glad were speaking about this because I wondered, my therapist would tell me that the second year is harder than the first. And I was like, why? But like, why is the second year harder than the first? I don't understand. She could never really give me a clear answer. But I think part of it is this, like the loss affects you so profoundly, your relationships, your everyday life, how you take care of yourself. The fact that I have to dye my hair all the time now. It takes this whole effect on you, but it could be wildly different. So like the number of, after you lose a baby, you're going to have huge problems. I just don't know which one you're going to have. It could be a physical thing. It could be a relationship thing. It could be a million different things.
So let me ask,
going to be bad.
Do you feel like year 2 is harder?
Yeah, I'm so glad we're talking about this. Do I feel year 2 is harder? I feel this is going to be the biggest cop out. I feel year 2 is harder in some ways and easier in others.
Because I know we've talked about this before, and before we have both said unequivocally year 1 was harder. No question.
I was so checked out and I completely removed all my responsibilities from the entire universe. And I just focused on myself every single day, every single hour of every single day. So it was horrific. I would definitely not want to do that again. If I had to choose between year 1 or year 2, I would do year 2 again. But my God, I really don't want to. And year 1, I was so out of it that I don't remember it in the way that I feel like now I'm living in my life and it is so hard and I feel it.
I think that's a really good way to put it. I think it all is so much more real now. And then so in some ways that makes it harder.
And okay, this is another thing I've recently been feeling. I feel sometimes like my memory of Aiden and my relationship with Aiden is being clouded by all the challenges. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to just look back with like such sweet love and pure innocence and just like feel such like just pureness in my heart when I think about him. Now, when I like look back on him, it's like clouded by all these challenges.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, all of the shit. Like there's so many fingers, like you were saying, like sticky fingers. It's everywhere. It's affected everything.
I wonder if you also, like, you think about Quinn, right? You think about Quinn, your relationship with Quinn. Like, I mean,
it pains me, but most of the times I've thought about him in the last 6 weeks since I got this heart diagnosis have been in the context of this heart diagnosis.
Yeah.
Maybe not most, but a lot of the time.
In an unpleasant way.
Exactly.
I think in year one, all I could remember and all I could feel was the pleasant goodness.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not that I'm remembering him in an unpleasant way. It's just that the context in which I'm thinking about him is about unpleasant stuff. And he's there, he's like, as I'm thinking about it, like there he is,
It's like, if you think about the architecture of the Twin Towers, I'm sure that there's beautiful, lovely architecture. And maybe you got proposed to and it was beautiful and you got proposed to at the top of the rock or whatever it is, the Twin Towers, top of the world or whatever it is. But it is impossible to think about the Twin Towers now without thinking about their ending. You can't just think about them as buildings anymore. There's like a war, a blowing up, death.
You see that skyline and you're like, oh, that's before 9/11.
100%. You look at the Manhattan skyline, you're like, oh my God, that's gorgeous. You see it with the Twin Towers, you're like, oh my God, look how beautiful. And then you're like, oh, those are the Twin Towers.
Oh, this was before.
This was before.
You look at it and you say, that was before.
That was before. Oh, what a disaster. And you can't help but think about everything related to September 11th when you look at that skyline.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at the buildings and I see the beauty that they have. And I know there's a lot of memories that are like good and holy and special in those. And I can't remove from there the devastation and sadness that it has caused me since. And I think sometimes I feel angry about that because I feel like I've been robbed even like the beautiful pure memories too. Like I've lost so much now. So
I agree with you 100%.
I've been, So year two, is year two easier than year one? Not particularly, but year one is not particularly, but year one, I was more horrific in its own. It was horrific. And it was more bad, but barely.
I think if we could fully remember year one, it would be a no-brainer, no contest. It's definitely worse. But I think because year one is you're so out of it, I actually think that's why it feels like year two might be worse.
You're right. You're right.
Because
I definitely feel it more. I'm more aware of what's going on. And I know the consequences.
Exactly.
I didn't know enough.
The consequences are so much more clear. All right. So it's our 1 year anniversary. I have some podcast stats I'm going to read to everybody. We'll post these on Instagram too. Not that anybody cares except us. But we have 10,000 downloads of our podcast.
Congratulations.
We have released over 70 episodes. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's a lot.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a lot.
Okay, interviews. How many interviews have we done? I should have written this down. We decided we were going to record in 5 seconds, so I didn't have a chance to write this down. But we've done at least 10 interviews.
Way more than that.
We've done 10-ish bonus episodes. The most popular episodes. Oh, that's what I have. The most popular episodes that I have in here don't include the first 3 because those are the ones that people listen to when they're trying to figure out if they want to listen to the podcast or not. So I'm not going to count those. But the first 3 episodes are our top played episodes. Our number 3 most played episode is all about EMDR. So that is with my EMDR therapist. EMDR is a trauma treatment modality. Highly recommend it. Go listen to that episode. Our number 2 most listened to episode is Alina's Bad Day. I already talked about that one too. People seem to really like that one. Also, that's our 4th episode, so that one's kind of cheating because that's like
no, but it's a good one
too. But people go back and listen to it. And then number 1, your favorite episode by downloads is Grief Needs a Witness, an interview with Dr. Denise Mandel. And boy, do we love Dr. Mandel.
And boy, do we love her. And I tell her, by the way, she asks all the time, like, have people been listening to it? I tell her all the time, I'm like, yes, people love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
People love you. And then I thought it would be fun to actually show the least played episodes.
Oh, yeah. What are the least? Yeah. I have a feeling I know what they are. I'm pretty sure I know what they are.
Okay. So do you want to take a guess before I read them?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what they are.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Aiden's birthday episode and Quinn's birthday episode, Aiden and Quinn, those ones are low. December 1st, I know is like low, oddly. And that's what I remember.
Okay.
That's what I think.
None of those are on this list.
None of those? Okay, what is on the list?
Okay, so the 3rd least most popular episode is Butyrol cholinesterase, which is an Instagram live.
Oh, yeah.
About SIDS. And so I do think that's a little bit misleading because we did that Instagram live and then we also released it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's possible that people chose not to listen to it because they already listened to it on Instagram or they saw the title and they were like, what the fuck is Butyrol cholinesterase? But anyway, that's about a new biomarker for SIDS. Then the 2nd least played episode is We Survived, which is just a super quick little episode we released the Monday after Mother's Day.
Yeah.
But we had just released the big Mother's Day episode the day before, which was an interview with their moms. And then the least played episode is Amateur Hour. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, Amateur Hour is the one where it was pure chaos. We were trying to record like, physical symptoms of grief.
Maybe only we think that one's funny. I'm surprised because that one I found funny. I like listened to that.
I think it's too. If you haven't listened to that one, guys, go listen to it.
That was a funny one. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then I also have on here, this is my last thing.
Yeah.
I have listener favorites based on engagement on Instagram. So for those, I think, and this is from my own memory, so this might not be exactly correct, but I think the Sad Dads Club, we got a lot of engagement on that one. I think Puppy Love, which was released back in February, and that was early. We didn't have as many followers then, and people love that episode.
I like that episode too.
The love for our babies that died, just puppy love instead of true love. And we were talking about that in the context of Judith's, at that time pregnancy, and now she has a living daughter.
And now I have a living daughter, and just to follow up on that one, I love my daughter and my son the same.
It's not
puppy love. It's the real deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think the most engagement we ever got on an episode is a picture is not the same as being together. That's the one where we talked about lock screens, cell phone lock screens.
That
phone
one
background
is true. That's true.
I love that one.
I love that one too.
It seemed like you guys really liked that one too. So
year 1 in the books, on to year 2. Let's think of how much we've grown just in the past year. Like, put podcasts aside. Like,
Judith, where were you when we started this podcast?
I was interviewing for jobs. I was living in a place temporarily for 2 months, and I moved 3 times after that. I was newly pregnant. I was like 15, 16 weeks pregnant. My husband did not have a job. He had just gotten fired a couple weeks before. I didn't have a job.
You did not have a job.
I had like some weird health insurance problems I was trying to deal with. I was living in my family.
You didn't know where you were going to live?
I didn't know where I was going to live permanently, and I didn't know where I was going to live in a month from then. My parents had just gotten divorced. Like, my mom had left my dad 2 weeks before. You were single. We were looking on Hinge. You were single, very single. We had just started looking on Hinge for you. You didn't know about your heart condition. You had just moved into your apartment a couple months before.
Yep. I was still fully married to Kaylee. Kaylee and I had not filed for divorce yet.
I actually think Kaylee was living at home.
We were separated, but
the house was still not sold.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, Kaylee was, that's right. We still hadn't sold our house.
One thing that is the same. I still have not talked to the medium, and that has not changed. That has not changed.
If you had told me a year ago that we would have a podcast with 10,000 downloads and all these followers on Instagram and all of these, and not even just followers on Instagram, but we have such an engaged community on Instagram and all these people who I would genuinely consider friends that I've only chatted with in direct messages on Instagram. Like, if you had told me that, because at this time last year, we're recording this October 25th. We didn't have the idea for this podcast until November 1st, and we released our first episode on the 4th. So, like, at this time, we had the courage to it.
Wait, I remember.
I wouldn't believe
it. I was like, Alina, we need a goal. I'm a very goal-oriented person. I was like, what do you think is a reasonable goal for how many people listen to each episode? And I said, remember what I said? I was like, 50 downloads. If we could get 50 people listening, I would say we made it. We accomplished our goals. 50 downloads. So this
just
is
blown past our initial goals, and now we're blown past our stretch goals.
And we stopped making goals because we're just like, whoever is part of our community.
We stopped making goals. Now we just do it.
Now we just live. Okay, so
thank you everybody for listening.
And let's say a special thank you to Alina, because she edits literally every episode, does every single reel on Instagram, edits everything I put on Instagram because nothing is ever centered. She does every single story. I will write stories, but I never like sit there and talk. I think it's like weird to talk to myself, but Alina talks to herself all the time on Instagram. Alina is like 99%.
I would say
the engine behind
if anybody's curious about the distribution of work, I would say you probably answer 80% of the messages. You come up with 80% of the ideas for stuff we do. And I do 80% of the execution of everything else.
And 100% of the editing.
And 100% of the podcast editing.
But one thing I am good at is scheduling. I help with the scheduling.
And you're always like, we got to schedule your friends' interviews. And I'm like, I'll get to it.
I am good about scheduling. I do not much else. To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow. Yay!